took, it was one of those things where the record store would cash our paychecks for us, knowing that we would spend all of our money because I was a teenager myself.
Yeah.
And then
the house always wins.
Oh man, so we'd get like 40 or 50% off of stuff.
It's not bad.
Except for like certain things, So like I would clean up and just getting, like all like the McFarlane figures were coming in at the time, so I would get those, and I still have like Ash and the Crow and all that kind of stuff, and it was a really fun time of my life. But that's how I discovered you guys, was like the shipment came in and I'm stocking the record,
right?
So that was pretty cool. So I've had a relationship with the band for
interesting time,
22 years now.
Yeah. Are we on? We rolling here? Okay, cool.
I never know. I'm
glad.
We're just hanging out.
No, I'm glad. I didn't want to like give it a
give away the
stuff
secret
that wasn't
sauce, the good stuff.
Yeah. So I just like feel like sometimes we're not in that world anymore. Very much so, not in that world. The first album came out in this environment where, well, if we're going back a few years, I was working at a VPN company in Times Square in Manhattan, and
you're from New York originally.
Yeah, originally,
right?
yeah. And the guys who ran that place in 96, 97 were telling me, "Oh, you're a musician, huh? You got to get your .com and your .org and your .net, and you got to make sure that you get your digital rights, because this shit's software now, and people don't know that, labels don't know that yet, but it's software. No matter what, songs are software." And at first I was kind of like, I don't get it. Oh, okay. The format is software. And he's like, yeah. Anything I can copy on a disc, even a DAT tape, that's data. That's software. It's not a depreciable anymore. It's perfect copy. So he's like, you got to get your digital rights. And I was a little bit clued in on that in the mid to late 90s. But then when we got to the label and the first record came out, I remember our first week of sales, they were disappointed, and they sat us down for a meeting, and they said, we wish it broke the psychological barrier of 20,000 copies, and so we could talk about it that way. And I was like, well, what did it do? And they were like 19,781. And I was like, well, do we have any numbers from Napster or any of the sharing sites? And they were like, literally, like, what is that?
Yeah.
And this is 2000.
Yeah.
This is like the summer of 2000. So I kind of went, we're in trouble. And I was always skeptical of major labels. I had been in other bands and knew that the chances of them getting it right were often very small. But when they did get it right, they could get it really right. And so it was a gamble. And during the whole time with them, I was kind of like, maybe we're not really supposed to, this is not such a good idea. I don't know, blah, blah. So when we delivered our second album, which was 2003, now we're talking about things beginning to really shift away from physical, but nobody really knows what the next chapter looks like fully and completely.
Very uncertain for
right. Still had people telling me all the way up to 2005, had a manager telling me, no, CDs are coming back. No one's going to ever stop making physical. Digital's a fad, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I don't think you're right about that. Yeah. So it was like, there's a lot of bad advice floating around, and you wind up pissing a lot of people off because you don't want to do the thing that they think is the mechanism is made for, which is physical sales. And short story is that when we delivered the second record, they hated it. And they told us they weren't putting out in the States. And I said, I should probably get a day job. And they got mad at us and kind of threw us out of the building with our masters. So we got off of the major label in 2002, 2003. You had the masters? Yeah, with the masters for our second record. We walked with them. So Lemonade now has belonged to us for 20 years.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Kind of worked out well.
By accident.
By accident, yeah.
I mean, nobody was really sure. I had like a bit of a feeling that physical was doomed. And now physical is this interesting, kind of cool novelty. Vinyl's awesome because it's better. Everyone's beginning to understand that it actually was better. It was a better format than anything digital. And it's such an experience. And I, obviously for convenience sake, I have my digital, and we all do, sure.
Right? Yeah. But if I can ever buy an actual vinyl, a physical record, and then the experience of, putting it on, you can't just forget about it. You're engaged with it, right?
Yeah,
it's a beautiful experience that you have with that.
It's a physical interaction with the waveform of the music, like as the waveform's etched into the vinyl.
Yeah.
So it's like if you get a microscope out and you look at it, you can look at the little canyon of the song.
Yeah.
You know, and those little twists and turns, that's the music happening. That's the thing that you want. So it's you can't have that with digital streams of zeros and ones. For some people, I guess it doesn't matter, but for the first part of the 20th century, it was a tactile experience, right? It was like you could hold it, touch it.
CDs were everything,
right?
You know, that was the wave of the future,
right? And if you remember, I don't know if you remember when CDs first came out, I was beginning to really listen to music as a young person, and I got a Sgt. Pepper's disc, and it sounded like shit. it was like you know, and it's those first cuts of the of the Beatles catalog are notorious. The first discs, the first CDs of the Beatles catalog are terrible.
Well, especially compared to something that would traditionally, obviously there was, you know, cassettes and 8-tracks and everything, but traditionally compared to the vinyl,
right?
You know,
it
wasn't like a Coolio album coming out and it was on CD for the first time and you had to compare it to.
Well, but here's interesting. You should mention that because hip hop did get CD sound right.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
hip hop had the extra bass, and the first cuts of you know, the first CDs of old classic Led Zeppelin and all that stuff. That stuff sounds thinner than tin. You know, it really doesn't sound that good on the first wave of CDs, and they weren't getting it right yet. But I was at that point. I was used to. My mom had taught me how to load up the Rumors reel-to-reel that she had. She had a couple of reel-to-reels, and I knew how to load up Rumors and find secondhand news on the reel-to-reel. By the time I was 4 years old, I knew how to do this little like 4-step procedure and get it right and listen to it. So it was like even that tactile experience was like way better than a CD. You know, not that CDs are garbage, and they can sound really good. They can be very convenient and you know, whatever else. But
it's funny now. There's a sense of nostalgia for CDs, and like, you know, there's all the memes out about like driving down the road, not paying attention, you get your giant book of CDs or on your visor, and the CDs are falling out because you try to stuff too many into one pocket.
Man, somewhere some truck stop somewhere in, I think, Wyoming is my original. Like had it since the 80s book of CDs. It fell out of the van one day, and sometime around, like, I think it was 2008. It fell out, and we never saw it again. But it's just really sad. Those were all my, like, you can't get those CDs anymore. So
I know. That's one thing about CDs. There was so many of like the imports and the cool versions and stuff that became collectible. And
stuff you bought at shows.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Stuff you bought at shows from a band that just disintegrated after that, and that was the only chance.
That's the only physical music that they have whatsoever. Right. It's a beautiful thing. So you mentioned, you know, talking about like the Beatles and Zeppelin and some of those bands. Who were some of your influences in your formative years that really kind of guided you into becoming a professional musician?
When I was 8, my mom taught me how to play "My Girl" by the Temptations on the guitar.
That was actually my first ever concert. Was it
really?
I mean, nice. It was that version of the Temptation and Temptations in the 80s. But
mine was "Sha Na Na."
It's cool too.
Yeah,
but as cool as a Temptation.
Your parents take you to see a show when you're 6 or 7 years old, and that's your first concert.
You don't have much say in it.
My first concert by myself without adult supervision was AC/DC at Madison Square Garden when I was 13.
That's cool.
I took the train in for that, and that was
cool.
That was some.
Mine was Ozfest '99.
Nice.
We got some good ones on our own accord here, but anyway, so Temptations.
I mean, early influences. My dad was always listening to Bob Marley and Willie Nelson, and so that was the sounds of those records, the thickness and the intrigue. You know, when Willie Nelson's early records, "Redheaded Stranger," you can kind of hear the floor creaking, and it's like you're in the room with this sort of like, you know, whorehouse piano kind of thing, and like it's so real and imaginative that was how I learned sound. I learned music from Bob Marley and from Willie Nelson, and then I got myself into AC/DC when I was about 9 or 10, and I had seen them here and there. And Rush was in there as well. My older cousin had played me "The Spirit of Radio" when I was about 5, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe 6. Yeah. And it was just like these were things that were always there. And when I started to like develop my own musical identity, I found them again, you know, and started buying tapes and bootlegs and whatever else, all the stuff. AC/DC became the prominent musical force in my life. I just sort of like spent hours and hours learning every nook and cranny of those guitar parts between Malcolm and Angus, and just listening to the records and trying to pick them out.
And more of a Bon Scott or a Brian Johnson guy?
Neither.
Yeah?
Yeah, neither. Yeah. I think that band was Malcolm Young's band and Angus's band. And
interesting, yeah.
And the way that Phil and Cliff play together, and for my money, Chris Slade had he's the one on Thunderstruck, which is arguably one of their biggest hits.
Yeah.
And, I just the feel of that. I wouldn't call them a band. I'd call them an organization. Like AC/DC is iconic in a way that goes beyond, their sound and the way that they do things is. People talk about it and say like, oh, AC/DC is kind of meat and potatoes rock, and the record's kind of like they do the same thing every time. Try it.
Right,
if it's that easy, why isn't anybody else doing it? It's good because it's really hard, because it's steeped in Motown rhythm and the way that they swing, the drums swing against the bass, and the space that they build in the song, and the harmonic arrangements between Malcolm and Angus. I mean, AC/DC is hard music. Go ahead, try and cover a song.
It's interesting you say that, because I find it a little frustrating. I've always had a love for AC/DC as well, that you often, or not often enough, do you hear about Angus being mentioned as one of the greatest guitarists in these like lists or whatever. He's somewhere down the list. And I think that's disrespectful, because to your point, it's so hard. He plays with such precision.
Oh my God.
And consistency day in and day out. And, I always find that I think he should be a lot higher on these lists than what I see him, and that kind of bums me out a little bit. That from some of these like, polls and whatever, they don't get that respect.
Best of lists, meh.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But look at what happens when AC/DC tickets go on sale.
Their last album just went, I don't know, gold or something crazy.
That shit is unassailable, man. It's like it's so good. Nobody's done anything like what they have done. Yeah. That bulk of catalog. Rush has done something similar in the progressive vein. Where it's just like becomes a reliable source of excellent music followed by excellent performance live. Yeah. This is like becoming more and more rare.
Yeah. So no, it's very true. I want to kind of segue into a little bit. You're talking about AC/DC, and I had read sometime fairly recently that the inspiration for Teenage Dirtbag had something to do with kind of a dark story, and in your love of AC/DC, if that's fair to say, and how that all kind of was incorporated together.
Yeah, I'll start by saying Teenage Dirtbag and it continues to thrive because of what people see in it of themselves, the way you put yourself in the character's role, the way you relate to the narrative, the freshness of it, the continuing novelty of it, if you will.
Absolutely.
is your ability to plug yourself into the song and be that protagonist or be one of those characters, right? Mm-hmm. And that said, when people ask me, was that my life? No, it wasn't. Mine was way more scary and lonely. I grew up in a very violent town. We had, as you said, a ritual satanic teen homicide over drugs in the woods near my house. These kids had lived on my block, and I had been aware of the Knights of the Black Circle and this cult of kind of people who killed local pets and burned houses down, and it was
real dark stuff.
Yeah, it was nasty and gnarly, and I was in more fistfights by the time I was 9 than I could even count, and it was just that kind of a place. It was a lobster town on the decline, and it was both parents of each family were working full time to keep it together, and it was gnarly, and there was a lot of drugs. There was tons of angel dust, and there was some heroin, and there was meth and acid everywhere, and when you look at the police report, there's an insight into where my idea of what a dirtbag was, or what the myth of the dirtbag was. I listened to the same music as these kids. They went to grammar school and preschool together. They were on little league teams together, and he murdered him. You know, they knew each other that well for all those years, and he killed him almost seemed like for fun or for cred or you know, whatever. And it was a gruesome murder. It wasn't like over fast. It was pretty nasty, and it happened in this town that was supposed to be so kind of quiet and sleepy and bucolic, and it was revealed like a serious problem that was still goes on. I don't think anybody ever fully talked about it, you know. But
it's tough to make peace with something like that.
Oh, there's no peace to be found.
Move on.
Exactly. It's just darkness. And the other thing is like, you know, this kid Ricky Castle got arrested wearing an AC/DC shirt. I had a tape case full of AC/DC, you know, and I went to a little Catholic grammar school around the corner from the woods where he did the thing, and it was parents and teachers and nuns and priests and stuff looking at me like, you know, I was one of them, and it just became that. You had this choice to make. Is this the music I like? I don't believe in any of this bullshit about the devil, all this fucking crap. I was kind of a burgeoning atheist at the time, even though I couldn't really ever put a word to it. You know, I just kind of was doubtful about church and all that hoo-ha. Sure. And so it was like the first real experience of adult hypocrisy. Yeah. Like they're looking for somebody to blame, and they're going to blame Angus. You know, this is just so dumb.
Because he wears a costume.
Right.
Clearly, he's the devil.
Sure. And my school uniform, except for the shorts, wasn't much different from the one Angus wore. So it's like, you know, I was like, oh, Jesus, you know, what's going on?
And that's really, I mean, that's wild. That's, whenever I read that, I think it might have been an interview with Rolling Stone or something like that. But it blew my mind. I had no idea there was this really dark story behind this. What I always perceived as kind of this fun poppy song about like being a loner, you know what I mean? And it really changed, you know, the way I looked at your process and for songwriting, which I always really had an appreciation for. But that, like, wow, to take something like that and to turn it into this anthem that is still so strong all these years later, and like you said, people can put themselves in that story.
Right.
It's really fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's fictionalized. The environment that it came from is way darker than its ending.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I try and, you know, I don't think a song about that murder would sell very well. Like, I didn't feel like that was the thing to write. But when I say dirtbag, I'm talking about, for me, 1984, the summer of 1984 in Northport, Long Island, and it was bad news.
Yeah. What do you think about and you touched on it, the longevity and, you know, continued popularity of that song that came out 22 years ago? I mean, with social media and this whole movement, everybody from A-list celebrities on down to your next door neighbor are doing the Teenage Dirtbag challenge or whatever. I mean, sure. Did you see that coming? Or?
No. When I wrote it, I kind of had a sense that it was a strong narrative, strong song, but I had been around long enough to know that wasn't enough, and you know, tons of other stars had to align, and so I had high hopes and low expectations. You know? Yeah. And I still kind of maintain that. You know, we've been independent since 2005, 100%, no management, none of that stuff. So we kind of cruise on the authority of that song, really, you know. And it does the work, it does the management, it does the booking, it does it takes care of all that. It's the thing that we don't have to get out there and bang the pots about. You know, it kind of does its own work in that way, and that was really fortunate. Yeah. Because I'm not a very good self-promoter.
Well, luckily, like at the end of the day, you know, people know that song, they know Wheatus, they know you, and then, you know, like you said, that does the promotion.
Sure.
You know? And then you get to come in and, you know, you know, continue to write new music and put out new things. And
we got to have our fun after that, because it was like, okay, well, this song's obviously going to keep us doing something in people's minds at this point. I think we kind of figured that around 2008. We realized it had come back enough times and kept going enough times by then. Should have been long dead after its, you know, first 2001 burst. But so we started doing things that really appealed to us. And being the band that also has a sort of long, dark, progressive series of rock EPs, you know, that are tricky and mathy, and then also some cuter stuff after that about love and after the apocalypse, and like just the topics that we certainly would not have been able to unfold on a major label. Teenage Dirtbag allowed us the space to do things like that.
It sounds to me, and I kind of liken it to, you see an actor, you hear like Ethan Hawke talk about this or whatever, and he does the big budget film, so he can do the films that he's passionate about, kind of thing, like, the art film or whatever, and kind of like one for you, one for me, kind of thing, right?
I feel that. We're nowhere near as ambitious as a Hollywood actor, but I understand. Though, right? I totally understand.
You're like, you guys are like the Ethan Hawke of...
It makes sense. It makes sense.
So I also saw recently, I think it was during the pandemic, the documentary.
Yeah.
So what was like kind of the starting point for that, and
we had
the evolution of that?
Yeah, we had so when we made that series of dark sort of progressive EPs, 2007, 2008, 2009, we had a whole bunch of new kinds of people reach out to us, and one of them wanted to make a movie. And so we invited these people onto the tour bus, and with lots of warnings. Look, this is gruesome. I mean, this is not comfortable. This is difficult, hard work. It's dangerous at times, And so we wound up calling the film "You Might Die," because I still feel that way sometimes about tour, even though we're in a much safer place than we ever were. During the leaner years when we were touring, we were like, we could have rolled down a mountain and no one would have heard of us again. It was like that. And
do you really think that was the case, or
no, I really
was it just like self-doubt?
No, we were literally snowed in Wyoming several times in a van, and do you remember Bayside had that terrible accident?
Yeah.
We were on the same road about a month later, and it had just started to snow, and I was doing the drive. It was supposed to be about a 6 or 7 hour drive into Utah, and I saw it starting to come down, and the trucks had their chains on, and you're passing through the Rocky Mountains, and the Three Sisters Pass there in Wyoming, and I pulled over. And I got out of the car and I said to this guy, had an FBI training grounds hat on. And I said, this guy's going to know what the weather's like around here. So I walked up to him and I said, sorry to bother you, sir, but I was just wondering if it's safe to try and get through this Three Sisters tonight. And he goes, what are you in? And I said, oh, that's van out here with this trailer. He said, you going to take the sisters in that tonight? And I was like, yeah. He goes, boy, you're going to die. And I was like, at
the beginning of a horror movie.
I was a little. It sounds funny now, but he was the guy who pulled Bayside out of the ditch.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he was.
Oh my God!
I pulled some boys out of the ditch about a month ago, and 2 of them died. You don't want to. He's like he was.
It was the same guy.
The same guy.
Oh
yeah, there's not a lot of law enforcement around those. Like it's very sparsely populated. So he warned me, and we slept in the van in that very parking lot that night. And had I not bumped into that guy, I might have tried it. I might have just chanced it and see if we could do it, because we needed the money, for the next show. But we woke up the next morning covered in about 2 feet of snow in the parking lot and all freezing our asses off.
He saved you all's lives.
He did save our lives. He most certainly did.
I know there's many scenarios where like I feel that something like that might happen, but it's just my anxiety and I'm making it up in my own head. So like if something like that were to happen and I find out, oh yeah, I would have actually died.
Yeah.
Had I attempted that would have really changed the way I
my girlfriend Gabrielle has a saying whenever this kind of a situation, whenever we're doubtful about safety and travel, she says, everyone thinks that bad things don't happen to them, but they happen to somebody, and that somebody could be you.
It's very true. And they probably thought it wouldn't happen to them. Yeah. It's kind of it's a little trippy to think about.
Yeah, it is. But it's funny. We're laughing because it's mortal humor.
You have to laugh through, like what did I say the other day? Like smile through the cries.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but take it seriously still.
You take it seriously, but you gotta find laughter wherever you can. That's the truth.
Yeah. Shows are great, but dying is worse.
Dying is worse. Yeah, like maybe cancel this show. So as of now, whenever this airs, you guys will be done with your tour that you're on right now. What's coming up in the future?
We got a bunch of we've been suddenly invited to a bunch of cool festivals in America, something that's rare for us.
Yeah, haven't done many festivals?
No, we mostly just tour ourselves in clubs like this one. But we got invited to Odyssey down in Florida. And,
by the way, coming to you from the basement in beautiful Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. And then there's another one we're doing with Blink 182 and Paramore in May in Atlantic City, New Jersey.
I just saw that was announced.
Yeah. It's like we're getting invited to this stuff,
That's
and
cool.
I see Coheed and Cambria on the list, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
we're on the same bill.
Like, yeah, we get to play, make some money, but also get to see bands.
Yeah,
that
I
we
get
like.
to see them. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I told you, but I'm from Jersey originally myself, so like, I'm thinking about going to that. Like, at first I thought it was Asbury Park,
right.
and I'm like, oh, it's AC. It's a little bit further down. Still worth the trip.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a fun line. What's it called? Do you remember the name of the festival?
Oh boy, you just made
I'll put
me,
you on the spot. It's all right.
Yeah.
It was a new one. It's a brand new festival.
It is a brand new festival, and I rattled off the name of the first one, and now that's stuck in my head.
We'll just dub it over.
Yeah.
Nobody will.
Come see us at the Murmur Festival in Atlantic City, New Jersey on.
That's pretty cool.
There you go.
No, but like speaking of that, you guys, so you're more than a pop punk band, but a lot of people categorize you and kind of lump you into that.
It's a funny tag.
Yeah.
I personally was never very into punk while it was happening. I was much more of a progressive and hard rock and hip hop fan.
We talked
as a
about your
kid.
influences.
Right.
Rush and AC/DC.
I discovered post-punk, Husker Du and Pixies and
yeah, great man.
and a band called Walt Mink that I was really into.
I don't know Walt Mink. I'm not familiar.
Walt Mink. Yeah.
All right.
There, look them up.
Help me remember, guys. Walt Mink.
Right, and Super Chunk, and
Not like this is being recorded.
Right. And I came
Chunk.
from the like sort of post metal, post hardcore, post punk area. That's where I discovered that stuff. So Ani DeFranco, Helmet, Quicksand.
Quicksand, I think just played here.
Oh yeah, really?
Like just like a week or two ago,
I
maybe?
hope so. They're
I had
so
to work.
cool.
One of my friends invited me. I was super bummed.
I just saw them with Helmet and Clutch in New York, and it was
What a good lineup.
killer. It was so good. Everyone was so good. Everyone sounded so good. They were all in like good voice.
Man,
And,
I've seen Helmet separate, Clutch separate. I've never seen Quicksand. I was super bummed.
That bill should always be a thing. It was
constantly
killer, man. That was one of the best shows. It just the energy never dropped.
Yeah.
And Helmet,
Oh my God.
look out. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's awesome. No, but so like, yeah, some of your influence and stuff and way different than what people that maybe haven't done a deep dive into your catalog would categorize you as,
Right.
Because there's like a pop element, for some of the songs, but not all the songs.
Well, no, but so pop punk. It's funny. I think it was timing. There was a lot of West Coast Orange County bands that were 3-piece guitar, bass, drums that were delivering post Ramones sort of power pop labeled as pop punk at the time.
You guys get like 2000,
right?
It's like
and we were more like what if Metallica and the Talking Heads had a band together?
Yeah.
So there's sort of like
I dig that.
We're more of a New York eclectic vibe. I was really into a band called Soul Coughing at the time,
yeah.
and we were sort of trying hard to mimic their production aesthetic, at least on the pop and heavy rock side of that equation.
Yeah.
So it was. We weren't, but we got lumped in.
I always found that to be interesting.
It's kind of so that's a major label, like, oh, we need to put a stamp on this and call it something and get it out there. And, it wasn't really.
Tell people what they need to expect from this, and then that's not the case.
I don't think it told you anything about our music.
Yeah.
And, so.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So you guys are doing some of the festivals coming up. Any plans for new music in the near future?
Yeah, so I'm almost done with the 20-song version of our first album, which was meant to be the 2020 20th anniversary. What a pain in the ass COVID made that.
Yeah. Really difficult for the music industry, to say the least.
Let me tell you how hard it is to stand in the same room with a bunch of people and play live music onto a record when there's a pandemic. But it was delayed, but I have 4 more songs to mix when I get home. The majority of them, the 16 of those tracks from the original record, there's 10, and then there's an extra 10 that through the years we felt like kind of belonged on the first record, and that's the reason we didn't put them out.
Yeah.
So we had this sort of like secret storage shelf of like, that's our first album song,
Yeah.
And so we recorded all that stuff, and the 2020 20th anniversary edition of our first record has 20 tunes on it. The 10 that from album 1 re-recorded because those masters were lost by the label, so we made them again.
I've read that. That's right.
And then 10 other songs that kind of fit the mold, and so it's a 20-song 20th anniversary edition of the first record.
When do you see that? Maybe.
Well, like I said, 16 of those tracks are out on streaming right now.
Yeah.
We've been releasing them in single pairs as I finish them because we.
But are you gonna do like one?
Yes.
Like one
yeah. As soon as I'm done with the other 4, sometime early next year, we're gonna package it up, cut it to vinyl from pure DSD, which is a high res format, and get the final document of our first record out there once and for all.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right. So the 10 that you have re-recorded, are they exactly true to the original, or did you switch it up a little bit and add some things that you maybe didn't do at the time?
We started with dead ringer copy. So we went for exactly the thing, and then we looked at it and said, okay, what did we do back then and why? Were these mistakes? Was this a shortcoming? Was the shortcoming good for the record, or was it like, nah, that kind of sucked?
Yeah.
You know, so we patched them up, I guess you could say. They're all the same tempo because we luckily had an older, incomplete version of the master tapes that from the first record that I had kept in an old wine box, and was able to salvage them and transfer them. And so we were able to use the original templates for the click tracks and the tempo and like the dynamics and stuff. And we looked at that, stripped it all back and replaced it.
Okay.
Like, so
cool.
we did have a good blueprint of what to do as far as keeping it authentic to album 1, but then we were able to make sort of more careful decisions about, let's fix that. We always wanted to fix that.
Because obviously involved as musicians, and and like, what do you want to do different? But there's always probably something that you want to change.
There was a fear of moving too far away from something people already love, so we kept it to the point where you might not know what's different.
Okay,
like, it's like that.
But you know,
but I know. Yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much for taking some time today. We're going to wrap it up here because I know you got load in and sound check and everything shortly. But everybody, check out the new re-recorded tracks on that sometime probably next year.
Yeah, 2023, we're going to have the full physical and digital release. Yeah.
Some awesome festivals, including the one that we will dub in with the name from Atlantic City.
Adjacent. That was the problem. Adjacent Festival, Atlantic City, New Jersey, next May. So look it up, get some tickets, come see us. There's so many cool bands on that.
Yeah,
I'm very, very honored to be a part of it. It's Adjacent and Odyssey. I couldn't remember. So
I might have to come out there. Like, my wife and my anniversary is in May, so maybe I can wrap that up with a bow and say, hey,
please do. Please
really
do.
Cool. But you're going to be kind enough to play a couple songs for us, including one that I requested. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, no problem. I'll get my
take a little break here and get going with that, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
Cheers.
All right, here we go. This is a song called Lullaby. It's from our yet-to-be-released 7th album.
So
much time when we can get it right. When we wake up, sleep now, my love. We will be doing fine. We will have so much time when we wake up. When we can carry the groceries, rake all the leaves away, read you a story or two. Now fetch me my medicines, all that I need you to do. Ain't it true? Ooh, 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 ooh. We'll save you now, babe. Breakfast voice. All right, a little respect, right? That's the one you wanted? All right, no problem. It's a little easier to play than that last one. I tried to discover a little something to make me sweeter. Oh, baby, refrain from breaking my heart. I'm so in love with you, I'll be forever blue. That you give me no reason, you know you're making me work so hard. That you give me no, that you give me no, that you give me no, that you give me no soul. I hear you calling. Oh, baby, please give a little respect to me. And if I should falter, would you open your arms out to me? We can make love, not war, and live with peace in our hearts. I'm so in love with you, I'll be forever blue. What religion or reason could drive a man to forsake his lover? Don't you tell me no, don't you tell me no, don't you tell me no, don't you tell me no soul. I hear you calling. Oh, baby, please give a little respect to me. I'm so in love with you, I'll be forever blue. That you give me no reason, you know you're making me work so hard. That you give me no, that you give me no, that you give me no, that you give me no soul. I hear you calling. Oh, baby, please give a little respect to me. I hear you calling. Oh, baby, please give a little respect to me. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Boxland Media. Think big.